Alright, this is the Wolfman, and it's time for the Retro Time Machine, baby, where your host Jay Jennings talks to the grooviest cats of the 70s. Now, without further ado, here he is, my main man, Jay Jennings.
We're the ones to watch, we're KTTV, the ones to watch, we have it all to see. We bring you the stars and your favorite shows. We're right here beside you as LA grows. We're the ones to watch, what more is to know? The ones to watch, yeah, we're shining bright. KTTV, LA, 11.
Of our own. Kids are people too. Walk-a-doo, walk-a-doo, walk-a-doo.
Walk-a-doo, walk-a-doo, of course. Hello, everybody. I'm Jay Jennings, and welcome to the Retro Time Machine podcast, where we discuss all things retro. And today is our Wonderama special, where we will take a look back at this memorable Lost TV show. Now, it's Lost because after Metro Media was bought by Fox, they decided to erase all the tapes and dump them in the East River, which was actually a common practice with kid shows and forgotten shows back in the day. But why they did it to arguably the greatest kid show of all time remains a mystery. In any event, today I'll be showing some fun photos from the show, but what you all came to see was the super rare video clips that I have lined up. Being the archivist for the Bob McAllister estate does have its privileges, and I thought that sharing these rarities with other fans would be fun. And then we have a special treat. I'll be presenting a condensed 14-minute version of my 65-minute long documentary on the history of Wonderama and why it was suddenly canceled in 1977. So sit back and pretend this is Sunday morning in the late 1960s or early to mid-70s, and Wonderama is still on the air. FYI, the show was seen by 6 to 10 million viewers every Sunday morning, and the waiting list for tickets to get on the show, was 7 years. So that's just one of many reasons why Wonderama is without equal in the annals of children's programming. So Bob was Wonderama's fifth and final host, and he was the most successful because there were 4 previous hosts. So let's take a look at them just to set the stage. The show just didn't start with Bob when he took over in 67. The show started in 55, and it was already a popular kid show, but on a local level. And the first host was Sandy Becker, and he was very engaging, and it debuted on WABD-TV, Channel 5, on Sunday afternoon, September 25th. And Sandy entertained his young viewers with games, craft making, puppetry, and skits. This was 1955. The game of musical hosts started in 56 when Becker quit Wonderama after one season. He was replaced by Herb Sheldon, who hosted the show until August 1958, when he quit following a creative dispute with station management. Up next, the third host was Bill Britton, who later you might recognize, the name, he played Bozo the Clown. He took over, the show for over a little year, changing the formula slightly by pre-taping the show before a live audience. The show was later produced by WNEW-TV Metro Media. Then in 1959, ushered in yet another new host in the form of Sonny Fox, who introduced segments like spelling bees, dance lessons, and Shakespeare dramatizations, not to mention trips to interesting places and events. Sonny, I guess, is, if you're someone who's a little older than I am, before Bob, Sonny Fox was your main host because he hosted the show for many years. But people of my generation, I think born in 63 and later, know of Bob McAllister. But if you were born before that, Sonny Fox was your guy. But anyway, in the summer of 67, Sonny left Wonderama to host an adult show and was replaced by Bob McAllister, who had his own successful children's show in Baltimore. Bob returned Wonderama to its comedy variety format, where he performed magic tricks, comedy, and puppet skits, always engaging the studio audience in games and interviewing guests and celebrities and personalities. Bob hosted the show for nearly 10 years. It actually ended on Christmas Day, December 25th, 1977, when Metro Media decided to drop Bob's format of the show altogether, go figure, and replace it with an hour-long news magazine hosted by teenagers. Wonderama made its mark as an important show for kids because it made implicit the idea that kids were people too. And this was a bold statement to make, and by incorporating catchy songs and famous guests, Bob was indeed the Johnny Carson of the younger generation. And so now I'll give a little background on Bob before we get to the photos and the super rare clips. Bob first went to work at WVEC-TV, Channel 15 in Norfolk, Virginia, where his duties included several jobs, including program director. And when the station needed a children's TV program for their weekday morning schedule, they hired Bob to host Ranch House Tales, introducing old cowboy movies. And then in 1956, Bob joined CBS affiliate WTAR-TV, Channel 3 in Norfolk, Virginia, hosting the Little Rascals Clubhouse, which later became the Bob and Chauncey Show. Local celebrities and kiddie show hosts like Captain Kangaroo, seen pictured there, Buffalo Bob Smith, and Paul Winchell all appeared on Bob's show, which featured Bob's original puppets like Chauncey Depew, which he has there, and other goofy but fun-loving characters. In 56, Bob also hosted the Bozo Show, where he played Bozo the Clown, which not a lot of people know, and he made public appearances dressed as Bozo. In 1963, Bob moved to WJZ-TV, Channel 13 in Baltimore, Maryland, where he served as an assistant puppeteer and magician every weekday morning on The Lorenzo Show, which was played by actor Jerry Wheeler. The show, Bob actually proved to be more popular than Jerry, so they made Bob the host, or actually they gave him first billing, and the show was later renamed The Bob and Lorenzo Show. Later, from 63 to 64, it then became The Bob and Chauncey Show. I said Chauncey was Bob's, marionette or a puppet, or we did his ventriloquist act with. In 64, Bob hosted the Bob McAllister Show, which every weekday morning until 67, he performed comedy, magic tricks, and songs. Well, in 1967, Bob's persistence paid off as his Baltimore show and talents came to the attention of the executives at WNEW-TV Channel 5 in New York, who were looking for a kids' TV show to succeed the aforementioned Sonny Fox, who was leaving Wonderama. So Bob went to the Big Apple to audition for it, and needless to say, he got the job, and the rest is history. Bob began hosting Wonderama on August 13th, 1967. The show aired Sunday mornings, as you remember, 3 hours long, from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Bob would engage his young audience of 100 to 175 kids, aged 7 to 14, and the viewers at home, he would give his magic tricks, he would do comedy skits, songs, which a lot of you remember, they were so memorable, lots of games, informational segments, and of course the guest performers. So now let's take a look at some photos from Wonderama, shall we? The first one is one that we all remember. It's Bob and the kids. I think he's singing Kids Are People Too, which was one of his catch songs. He would always open the show with "Have you heard any good news today?" And then maybe the guest who he was going to interview was sitting with the kids. And then Bob always loved to talk to the kids. There would be segments within the show where he would go into the audience and just put the microphone in their face and ask them about, how's school, or what kind of pet do they have, what their favorite TV show was. And he just really engaged the kids like no other host before or since. And of course, I think one of the more popular segments was when the kids would do exercise, come on everybody, do your exercise, and freeze, and then you'd have to stop during a jumping jack and not move. And I think millions of kids, learned how to get fit by doing the exercise song. And then, of course, probably the most popular segment of the show was snake cans, where about 15 snake cans were lined up in a row, and behind them were dozens of just toys of flavor of the month toys that all the kids loved. And Bob would pick 15 kids, and it wouldn't even get to that many. Maybe by the third or fourth kid, whoever would unscrew the top and a big snake would jump out, you lost, but you got a toy. But whoever got the bouquet of flowers, they won all the toys. And what kid didn't want to win all the toys? Another popular segment was Bob played Professor Finkelheimer, and he had the famous song, Finkelheimer, Finkelheimer, Finkelheimer. And that was probably one of Bob's most popular characters on the show. Then near the end of the show, or during the course of the show, the kids would get a lot of junk food. They would drink RC Cola and Good Humor ice cream and Nandy candy. And Bob would, of course, plug all these products by pulling out his Wonderama bag and naming all the food and the snacks and the junk food the kids had during the course of the 3-hour show. And now let's go over a couple of the most popular guests to ever be on the show. This is the Bay City Rollers, very popular band. They had their own Saturday morning TV show. They were almost like the Beatles. And when they came on Wonderama, the kids went absolutely nuts. And then Bob, of course, would interview them after a song or two. Another of the most popular guests to ever go on Wonderama was the great stunt motorcyclist Evel Knievel. And he would just tell, I think this might have been before he did the Snake Canyon jump, but he was talking about, kids, don't do what I do. And he broke, he's broken 50 bones. And but Bob was really inquisitive, and the kids were right there glued to every word Evel was saying. Another popular show, probably segment that ever appeared, was before Ollie and Frazier fought in Madison Square Garden in 1974. They had a little game of marbles. I mean, where else could you put two rivals who hated each other, and they're getting ready to box the next night, but here they are just taking time to be on Wonderama with the kids and playing a little marbles. And I think Ali won, even though I think Joe was from the streets of Philadelphia. He had some good shots, but I think Ali bested him. Anyway, so with that, we just took a look at some great rare photos. And now we're going to, let's see. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's talk a little bit more about, before we get to the next segment. Bob's main goal on Wonderama was to inform and entertain, and not necessarily educate. He didn't think it was the job of a children's TV show host to be an educator. He thought that was for parents and school teachers. Now, although Wonderama was seen only in 7 U.S. cities, they were all major television markets. That's why Wonderama was so popular. So if you lived in New York, Los Angeles, Boston, Cincinnati, Minneapolis, Kansas City, and Washington, D.C., you were fortunate enough to see Wonderama during its run, mostly Sunday mornings. But there were different versions that Bob hosted at different times. Obviously, Bob was the king of Sunday morning television, attracting more than half of the Sunday morning audience, according to Nielsen ratings. From 67 to 70, during Bob's first 3 years as host, Wonderama closely resembled his earlier WJZ TV show in Baltimore. as a lot of Bob's old skits and goofy characters, like Mike Fury, who's a goodie, found their way into each Wonderama show. But around 1970, until Bob's departure in December of 77, all of Bob's old characters were basically dropped from the show, and Wonderama became more of a celebrity-driven entertainment show. That's why you'd see all the top child stars and regular actors and movie stars and athletes and opera stars like Bob Merrill. They'd all be on the show, not just to promote something, but to be there for the kids. And so it set the standard where, that's where you could entertain the kids when you weren't, performing on the stage or in a movie. Famous actors, singers, musicians, comedians, athletes, and of course magicians. Since Bob was also a professional magician, there wasn't a professional magician on the planet that didn't appear on Wonderama, in support of Bob. And they met the kids and they talk in the audience. And then Bob, of course, would participate in a variety of skits and games, and a lot of them that we remember. That's why the Wonderama was known as the Tonight Show for kids. Okay, I could hardly contain myself. Now let's take a look at some super ultra rare segments from Wonderama. This is video footage which has not been seen in nearly 50 years. There's a couple terrible fourth generation VHS clips on YouTube. It looks terrible and you can barely make out what's going on. But as I said, since I am the archivist for the Bob McAllister estate, I am privy to some really rare video footage. So these are in high quality, at least most of them are. I'm sure you'll remember a few of them, if not all of them. So first off, let's take a look at the 4-count burpee. 4-count burpee. That is just incredible to see that footage. What Bob would go around, and if you weren't doing it correctly, he would tap you on the shoulder and say, "You're out, you're out, you're out." And so you'd have to go back and sit down until there was maybe 3 kids left. And there they would be doing 4-count burpees next to each other. And Bob would sit there and wait, go, "Okay, and you're out, and we have a winner. You win a 10-speed bike," or something like that. But great segment, the 4-count burpee. Now let's take a look at another very early, segment, a game that was called Crazy Car Chariot Race. I think this is from '67.
It's time for the big race, and our Romans are all set. As a matter of fact, they've got their chariots all fixed just like they did in the Roman days, with psychedelic decals, helium balloons, and they're all set to go. Now, it's more than just a race, because in the days of the Romans, they had to really fight and compete against one another. This is team number 1. This is team number 2. Team because team number 2 member happens to be his young lady, who is all the way down at this end of the course, and number 1 is at the opposite end. The object of each chariot member is to get his cart all the way across the line. So, are all of our Romans ready? Yes, is our audience ready? All right, friends, Romans, the first one that gets across their line will win a big prize. So the object is to pull the other man across. If all team members are ready, on your mark, get ready, get set, and go! Pull him down at the other end. Don't let him get it. There he goes. He's not down there yet. No, number one is heading toward the corner, and the girls are waiting, and they're trying to get in there, and there they go as number one is pulling, and there's a real fight going on. Who's going to... Number 5 is a winner! Hey! Okay, we have one winner, and number 1 is trying to get in there, and number 1 is going with all his might, but then it looks like number 2 is trying to pull him away. Will number 2 pull him away? There he goes. Number 1's almost across, but there's still a fight, and number 1 is a winner! And over at the other end of the studio, there still seems to be a fight on, because it's between team number 3 and number 2, and number 2 is trying his best to get in there, and he's just inches away, and he's almost across the line, but it's number 3 and number 4. It's number 3 and number 4, but he's got to get all the way to the other end, and they keep trying, and it's a fight. Now number 3 is tugging with all his might. He's trying to get across, and number 4 is rooting for her partner to get across. Uh-oh, there goes number 3. He's pulling. No, number 4 is tugging the other way, and this is a tough battle of the...
And they went on at it for another 5 minutes. You can just see the enthusiasm of the kids during these games and segments, and that's the kind of things that Bob hosted, and these are all his ideas. He had a group of a couple of people that he would plan the show with, and it was very planned out very stringently. And I mean, Bob knew what time this segment was going to start and what this one was going to be, and when the kids could have a break. And the parents were kept on another floor, and they'd be watching the show on a monitor, watching their kids, and there was lots of coffee. And it was a long show. The shows were like 8 hours, it was a whole day. It wasn't just the 3 hours that you saw, but just one of many great games that they played on the show. And here's another one. The quality is a little fuzzy, but that's okay. This was from one of the later years before, because that was an early one from 67. I think this is from 77. This is the old sit on a balloon and make it pop game.
Get those kids, because this is one of my favorite games, and it's called the old famous sitting on a balloon on a mattress game, and it's done by our famous balloon game testers. Yes. Oh, look at the teams come running. All right, the object's rather simple. All you have to do is run to that end of the studio, grab a balloon, run back here, but you have to sit on the mattress or stay on the mattress. You can't let your feet, and you burst the balloon. And the first one to pop the most balloons when we call time's a winner. And your scorekeepers are right behind you. You folks ready? On your mark, get set, and there. Oh, up. Here they come. Well, we got a little problem here today, folks. They're trying. They're going. Yay, there goes the balloon, and there they go. Looks like team number 1's in the lead. Oh, yeah, there goes team number 3. That number 2 just got, there he got it.
The sit on a balloon and make it pop game. These were, as I said, maybe some of them were a little bit more for the younger kids, but it all depended on, I guess, who was in the audience. Sometimes the audience would be made up of younger kids and sometimes older kids. But this is pure fun and entertainment. You'd watch it home with your cereal and you wouldn't miss a minute of it. Okay, another rare segment was one of my favorite games. It was called Guess Your Best. And I think this is the one where Bob would ask a question, and then the audience would vote by screaming or raising their hand. And then 3 kids who Bob chose from the audience would sit behind a desk, and then they would raise who they thought would get the answer right, which part of the audience, the first section, the second, or the third. So let's take a very rare look at Guess Your Best.
Which is your favorite network, NBC, CBS, or ABC? Which do you think is the favorite of this audience? Audience, tell us, is it NBC? Is it CBS? Or is it ABC? It's time for the riotous new rating waiting game, Guess Your Best. Play along at home and see how well your best guesses compare with our panel of best guessers. First, the delightful antiquer from Mrs. Reed's class, Barry Brown. Next, the baton twirler from Greenlawn, Long Island, Mary McDermott. And finally, the fisherman from Syosset, Long Island, Frank Langdon. And now, the star of our show, Bert Beautiful. Oh, yeah. Well, thank you very much. Hey, what a talented panel of people we have. And ABC won out already. How about that in the Wonderama rating game right here? All right.
And there was Guess Your Best, and great segment with Bert Beautiful, played by Bob. And the best ones were Celebrity Guess Your Best, where different celebrities would be on the show, and then the people would have to guess, the kids would have to guess, and then they'd vote and see who won. But anyway, these are great rare footage from a show. This footage is almost 50 years old. Now let's take a look at another great segment. And this was a skit where kids would dress up. 5 kids would come out dressed in an outfit, covered up really well. And I guess 1 or 2 kids were chosen to choose. They'd show a photo of the kid looking normal. And then you'd have to decide which one of the 5 kids was actually the kid in the photo. So it's kind of like, will the real so-and-so please stand up? But this was for kids. To tell the truth, kind of like that. So let's take a look at a great segment called I Spy.
Welcome to the hilarious new masquerade game, I Spy, or The Sky's the Limit. This is a photograph of John Weston as he looked before he met our nutty makeup man. Let's see what John Weston looks like now. Hello, what's your name?
My name is John Weston.
You look like the devil. All right.
My name is John Weston.
That must be John Weston. Yes.
My name is John Weston.
Ooh-wee, yes.
Woo! My name is John Weston.
All right.
My name is John Weston.
Woo-wee. All right. One of these people is really John Weston. 4 of them aren't. Let's see if we can find the real John Weston as we come down and we say that this young lady has a choice of finding a real John Weston. What's your name?
Heidi Zimmerman.
Okay, Heidi Zimmerman, come on out here as quick as we can. Boy, you don't know this young man, John, do you? Huh? All right, I've got his picture hidden somewhere. There you go. All right, that's John Weston. Study him as good as you can. And Heidi, you've got 30 seconds to walk up and down and see if you can find the real John Weston. Will Heidi be able to find John Weston? By the way, there could be a bonus on John Weston. And if there is, well, if she gets it on the first go, she'll win a super prize, which is a Scooby-Doo radio this week. All right, and we call time. Okay, Heidi, which one? You say it's is it really John Weston?
Yeah.
Look at this. There's a bonus. Heidi's a winner. First go. Let's have a nice hand for Heidi, huh? Yeah.
And there was I Spy, and that's just a great, that just brings back a flood of memories for me watching that show. One time, Jerry Lewis was the celebrity guesser, and he was sucking on a lollipop, and hey lady, I know who it is, and it was just really funny. But anyway, these are just some rare segments from Wonderama. There were dozens of them. And I just try to pick the best ones, or some of them, that you would enjoy seeing. And now here comes another segment that I'm sure you remember. There was the Wonderama A-Go-Go, where kids would dance like on high planks, like 4 or 5 feet tall, and kind of like Soul Train or American Bandstand for kids. And very popular segment. And Bob would play the top songs of the day or the week, whether it was by the Jackson 5 or Elton John or, It doesn't matter, or Mountain, doesn't matter who the band was. And Bob, I think he had a deal with the record companies to promote them and play them, and the kids would dance. And then there would be I guess a segment in the show where the kids would stand on each side of an aisle, and different kids were chosen to dance while slowly moving down the aisle, kind of like Soul Train. And then I guess the kids would vote, or maybe there was backstage judges, and then the kids, whoever would win a bike or something, and they would have the sole platform to do their own little dance. Anyway, during one of these segments, or actually during the later years, Bob would introduce the Disco Kid. Ride on, Disco Kid. And one of the kids he would pick from the audience would put on a mask like the Lone Ranger, and he would do a fake giddy up, you know, down and through the kids. He would go to Bob, hand him the record of the day, and then Bob would read it, and then the kids would dance to it. So anyway, let's take a look at this very fun segment. And this is a segment, I think one of the Bob's producers actually was the Disco Kid, and he surprised Bob when he goes by and hands him the record, and you can see Bob laughing. So it wasn't a kid, it was an adult. But here is the famous entrance of the Disco Kid.
Right now, what do you say we check out the old Disco Kid?
Ride on, ride on, ride on, Disco Kid.
Come out of a secret record booth with a cloud of diamond dust and a half-hearty, who knows, comes the Disco Kid. Join us now for the thrilling sounds of tomorrow, the choices of the charts of the future, by the masked marvel of music. The Disco Kid rides again.
Ride on, ride on, ride on, Disco Kid.
Here comes Disco.
Disco Kid.
All right, the Disco Kid ends the season with the premiere of Paul McCartney's new single. Listen to what the man said. Oh, yeah.
And there was that famous segment, the Disco Kid. Just a great memories. I hope it is for you as it is for me. It's like it's pick a year, 73 all over again. And it's Sunday morning, and we've got our Count Chocula, or we've got our alphabets, and we're just sitting in front of the TV. Our parents want us to clean our room, but I'll get to it after Wonderama's over, Mom. But anyway, now let's take a look at another great segment. This is an interview segment. And one of Bob's mentors was the late great Jim Henson of the Muppets. And Jim also worked with Muppets and puppets and marionettes. And he was a big influence on Bob. And for Bob to have him on the show, Bob was just beaming. And anyway, so here's a segment from a celebrity interview where Jim Henson comes on the show for the kids with Kermit the Frog.
Leader of the Muppets, Mr. Jim Henson.
You're the one.
Sit down,
You
Jimmy.
make that
Oh, gee, it's good to see you.
Oh,
Good to see you too,
Oh, it's
Kermit.
nice to be here too. Yes, indeed. Certainly, it's a pleasure.
Oh, where
Yes.
did the word Muppet come from?
Wow. No, originally it was to be a combination of marionette and puppet, because back when I first started, we used to do some work with marionettes and puppets, and that's how it came
The youngsters
about.
were saying, oh, he's a great Muppeteer.
That's true.
Earlier.
Oh yes, certainly.
Oh, you agree?
My arm wire fell out.
Oh, gee.
You
I'm
see that?
sorry.
You see that? We're giving away all the secrets of how these things are worked.
All right, since you're giving
there?
away secrets.
Look at that. See, I have an arm wire, and it went in the hand there, and it fell out.
Oh,
See that?
my.
Now you hold that hand there.
Oh, okay.
You hold that hand. Turn it
All right.
upside down.
Upside down?
It goes like that, and
Yeah.
then this arm wire goes in the air. I bet I can get that in there. Look at that.
Oh, my.
I don't think we'll work with the arm wire
When did you
today.
start? Can I maybe
What?
give you a hand there?
I started about 15 years ago, actually.
Anyway, that was just a great segment from Wonderama where Jim Henson came on the show. A lot of great guests were on the show back in the day. The show would go on for hours and hours if I told you who was on. But, I mean, just great guests. And, I mean, it's just a who's who, you know, from Colonel Sanders, you know, to the cast of the Brady Bunch, to Larry Storch, to Tracy Austin, the tennis player, basketball players, Clyde Frazier, just you name it, they came on the show and would talk to the kids, and it was really great. Now, speaking of one of the musical guests, this particular show is a very famous one, where the Bay City Rollers, as I said, were a very popular group, kind of like the Beatles for the 70s, and the kids ate them up. The music was kind of cheesy, but you know what? They were kind of catchy. Saturday Night was their big song, and they came on the show twice, and the kids went berserk. So I have the segment after they performed, and you can just see how wild and crazy it was when Bob interviewed the Bay City Rollers.
Well, how about that? Yeah, they're coming down, folks. Come on down. Yeah, Derek, come on over. Oh, hey, it's good to have you back on Wonderama. How are you, Derek? Yeah, Woody, come on over. Join everybody, will you? Pat, welcome to the group, huh? Good to have you here. I guess maybe for the people that don't know you, Leslie, would you introduce everybody? Start us off?
Well, here we have the very talented Eric Faulkner.
There you go.
I'm standing here.
Oh, that's only fair. Come on. Eric, you introduce the next one. There you go.
Right, here we have best drummer in the land, Derek Wambiak.
Derek, do it for Pat.
Okay, this is our new member. His name's Pat. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, well, introduce
And here's
Woody.
Woody. Hello. And here's
Woody, throw it back to me.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. By the way, let's show this. This is an Arista album, and it's called...
What's it called?
I beg your pardon. It's called the Bay City Rollers Dedication, and to give you an over here, to show you an idea of the crowds that come to see these folks. There were, what, 100 people at that last concert, huh, in that one? Wow, isn't that fantastic? That's in Canada, I believe, isn't it?
Toronto in Canada.
Did you enjoy Canada?
Yeah, it's really good. We recorded the album there. You know?
Oh, is that correct?
Wow, the Bay City Rollers. But anyway, let's get back to the show. One of the few criticisms about Wonderama, if you can imagine, was that it could be seen as a show that continually marketed and gave away products, toys, bikes, and candy. Well, Bob had a response to that. He said, hey, if adults can win new cars and trips to Hawaii, then why can't a kid win a 10-speed bike? Mic drop. So basically, that's true. And of course, let's not forget, of course, you didn't think I was, did you? Every kid in the audience at the end of every show, or not the end of every show, at the beginning of every show, they would wear it during the course of the show. They would get their own personalized Wonderama souvenir. And of course, you know what I'm talking about. The Lender's Bagel necklace with their name hand painted on it in front, where they would proudly wear it for the whole show. And if they got hungry, they would even nibble on it. But anyway, let's show a photo from that. Here is a Lender bagel. And what makes this special is this one says Wonderama on it. So it didn't have the name. And so that's Mr. Bagel and Cream Cheese. So anyway, I wonder how many of you still have your Lender's bagel necklace, and are they in that good shape? Because I know, as I said, a couple friends of mine said they would take a couple nibbles out of it when they were a kid. But anyway, so Bob unfortunately sensed that something was going on with upper management near the tail end of his run, around 76, 77. Unfortunately, like most great hosts do, they fall prey to creative differences and interference with the producers. And this time it was with Metro Media, who decided when they did reruns of Wonderama, they didn't want to rerun the guest segment because they didn't want to pay them. So they would cut out the guest segment and instead rerun a cartoon. So, hey, don't want to pay a celebrity? Run a cartoon. And Bob, that really bothered him. And so I guess it bothered them. He bothered the network enough that they decided not to renew his contract. It's like, huh? Most popular kids show in history. You don't want to renew Bob McAllister's contract. So Wonderama, despite its gigantic audience and loyal following, was unceremoniously canceled. And Bob's last show was ironically on a very happy day, Christmas Day, December 25th, 1977. Let's move on to my bonus treat that I have for everybody who was kind enough to join me this afternoon. It's a 14-minute version of my 65-minute documentary that I produced a couple years ago about Wonderama that explains it all. And it's called Whatever Happened to Wonderama. And watch it, enjoy it. It's got some great photos, and I narrate it. And we'll talk after it's over. So everybody, please enjoy a 14-minute version of Whatever Happened to Wonderama.
How? Young and not full grown. We have problems of our own. Kids are people too. Walk-a-doo, walk-a-doo, walk-a-doo.
Bob McAllister was the host of the most popular TV kids show of the 1960s and 70s, Wonderama. The show was seen by 6 to 10 million viewers every Sunday morning, and the waiting list for tickets to get on the show was 7 years. Bob was Wonderama's fifth and final host and the most successful, but Wonderama's demise in 1977 came with its share of controversy, something that haunted Bob until the day he died. Bob began hosting Wonderama on August 13, 1967. The show aired Sunday mornings from 8 to 11 a.m. Bob would engage his young audience of 100 to 175 kids, age 7 to 14, and the viewers at home with his magic tricks, comedy skits, songs, games, informational segments.
And first of all, I have a newborn Thumbelina.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I also have some Paint Your Wheels from Kenner Toys.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I also have...
I was trying to tell you. I know it's not a Fatsy doll.
That's a Fatsy doll, yes. That's a Fatsy doll.
Wonderama's segments were all planned and outlined by Bob. It was indeed a full-time job. The show consisted of 8-hour tape days, which were staged at WNEW Metromedia Television Studios in New York on the 5th floor in Studio 5. The day's tapings were divided into 13 segments, which enabled 6 other Metromedia stations running the program in their cities to drop in their own commercials and give stagehands a chance to switch props and allow the kids to use the bathroom. Bob's main goal on Wonderama was to inform and entertain and not necessarily educate. He didn't think it was the job of a children's TV show host to be an educator. That job was for parents and school teachers. Although Wonderama was seen in only 7 U.S. cities, New York, Los Angeles, Boston, Cincinnati, Minneapolis, Kansas City, and Washington, D.C., they were all major television markets. And for most of his run, Bob was the king of Sunday morning television, attracting more than half of the Sunday morning audience, according to Nielsen ratings. From 1967 to 1970, during Bob's first 3 years as host, Wonderama closely resembled his earlier WJZ TV show in Baltimore, as a lot of Bob's old skits and goofy characters found their way into each Wonderama show. But from 1970 until Bob's departure in December of 1977, all of Bob's old characters were suddenly dropped from the show, and Wonderama became a more celebrity-driven entertainment show, as the world's most famous actors, singers, musicians, comedians, athletes, magicians, and other experts in their field were all invited to perform and meet the kids in the audience, and then talk to Bob and participate in a variety of skits and games.
Exercise, exercise. Come on, everybody, do your exercise. Exercise, exercise. Come on, everybody, do your exercise.
Bob was a longtime advocate for nonviolent television shows for children. He was a firm believer that kids who would sit in front of the TV watching mindless killings wasn't a healthy thing for their growing minds. Bob's crusade against TV violence would later prove to be his undoing. When Wonderama started the 1977 season, something wasn't right. The producers introduced two characters that Bob was not in favor of at all: a wisecracking lion named Shoo Shoo and a short robot named Wonton. Worse than that, Wonderama itself was suddenly cut down from 3 hours to 2 hours and pushed back to 7 a.m. instead of its usual 8 to 11 a.m. time slot. Bob sensed that something was going on with upper management, and he was right. By the end of 1977, Bob fell prey to creative interference from Metromedia, who decided not to renew Bob's contract when it was up for renewal. So Wonderama, despite its large audience and loyal following, was unceremoniously canceled, and Bob's last show was ironically on December 25th, 1977.
We finished taping Thursday, and they said that Metromedia has decided to drop it. It's the end of an era, and that's the end of the show. It's been a wonderful relationship here. I'm very hurt to see it go off, and I think the public deserves good children's shows, and I think Wonderama has been the best since Sandy Becker started it 25 years ago. It's always been the very highest caliber.
What happened? Why is the show going off the air?
Well, I really wasn't given a reason by the management other than our last show will be Christmas morning. And my guess is, and it's only my guess, that it's an economic move on behalf of the station, and that it's probably easier to put a cartoon on and not have a studio crew. And I think that's where they're going.
Upon its cancellation, in its place, reruns of old Wonderama episodes were aired. Bob wrote an open letter in the Daily Variety to voice his disapproval that Metromedia chose to edit out all the celebrity guests and musical performers from the reruns, thus depriving future generations from enjoying the original shows. The straw that broke the camel's back, however, was when Metromedia showed a TV trailer for Charles Bronson's violent film The Mechanic during a Wonderama rerun.
Charles Bronson. Jan Michael Vincent. The Mechanic.
Bob was so incensed at the violence in the Mechanic trailer that he took out a second full-page ad in the New York Times, telling parents to not let their children watch Wonderama because it was surrounded by violence. He also added that he could no longer recommend Wonderama as a quality children's program. Metromedia's excuse was that the violent commercial was telecast due to a computer scheduling error. In later years, Bob admitted that these ads probably blackballed him from getting any further TV hosting jobs. Bob did try to make a comeback to children's television in 1978 when he signed on to host a network version of Wonderama for ABC on Sunday mornings called Kids Are People Too, which also featured audience participation and big-name celebrities. The format was very similar to Wonderama, but Bob's trademark songs and games were not part of the network's vision. The show was aimed more at teens and not children. Bob clashed with the show's producers and network executives. After only taping 11 episodes, Bob was once again unceremoniously let go and replaced by younger hosts. During a TV interview in 1983, Bob told the story about how Metromedia, to make room in their vaults, erased, taped over, or simply got rid of most of their Wonderama tapes, and in some cases, they were thrown in the East River. For the remainder of his career, Bob performed his magic and catchy songs at corporate banquets, picnics, comedy clubs, and amusement parks. He also taught magic at various New York City high schools and even put out a series of do-it-yourself home videos on magic. What was even more telling of his sterling character, however, was the grace with which Bob accepted the decline of his fame in his last few years. On July 21, 1998, Bob McAllister passed away at the age of 63. He is remembered as a loving husband and father, a magician, and one of the greatest children's television hosts of all time. Shortly before his death, Bob had talked about doing a kids show again, similar to Wonderama. Sadly, that show was never produced. I hope you enjoyed that, short version of my 65-minute documentary. Also, my book, Bob McAllister's Wonderama. If you enjoyed the special and it brought back memories, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Retro Time Machine. And you can watch previous podcasts. I've had guests like Butch Patrick from Lidsville. I've had Michael Gray from Shazam. And I've had Wesley Ewer from the Land of the Lost. So anyway, I just want to thank you all for spending an hour or so with me on this Sunday morning. I hope it was a nice flashback to when you watched Wonderama as a kid. So until next time, I'm Jay Jennings, and we'll see you next time on the Retro Time Machine podcast.